The scores just came back, and you just found out that you failed the BEC exam. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you, that sucks. I've been there, and I'll be the first one to tell you that failing the CPA exam can be very discouraging. There's often this misconception in CPA exam world that the BEC exam is a less challenging exam than maybe some of the other sections. Maybe students even get a little bit complacent sometimes when studying. The reality is there is no easy section on the CPA exam. While there are a lot of formulas that you need to understand, and while it may be tempting to just try to memorize your way through this exam, this is often a strategy that can leave you with a one-way ticket to a 70%. With that being said, it's critical that you understand the intuition behind a lot of these rather complicated calculations. We have to understand the intuition behind what it is we're calculating. We must not only know the formula for, let's say, weighted average cost of capital, but we must also ask ourselves, what is this formula calculating? So I'm likely talking to two different types of candidates out there. To the candidate who scored between a 0 and a 60%, I know you might be looking at your score and totally freaking out. You might be thinking it's going to be impossible for you to ever get through this. The reality is every candidate has a different situation. So I'm not just going to sit here and give you some general advice. Maybe you have a lot going on at work. Maybe your personal life is complicating your study schedule. Or maybe you just didn't put in enough time and rush through the material. Regardless of your situation, I'm here to tell you that it's okay, and that you can and you will get this done. But I'll also tell you that it might be time for you to kick this into a second gear. So before you just get back to it and start memorizing all these concepts and all these formulas again, before we start telling ourselves that if we redo 1,000 multiple choice questions related to economics and information technology, essentially memorizing our way to the finish line, let's take a step back, let's take a deep breath, and let's ask ourselves, do I really understand what's going on? Do I thoroughly understand working capital metrics? Do I understand the differences in liquidity ratios versus growth ratios? Do I even know why I'm calculating this? The BEC exam is not just about understanding the differences in variable costs versus fixed costs. The exam's also going to test you on complicated calculations such as ABC costing methods, variance analysis, as well as various interest rate calculations. So let's pump the brakes and let's get back to the basics, because nobody has a stopwatch next to you and is tracking how long it took you to pass the CPA exam. In fact, nobody is going to even ask you how long it took you to pass the CPA exam. Nobody will even ask you what your score was. But what they will ask you is, are you a CPA or not? So if you scored less than a 60%, bottom line is don't panic, because you are far from out of this fight. This doesn't mean that you are incapable of understanding this material, but it does mean that perhaps you should rethink your approach. So if you're a visual learner, check out Universal CPA Review, because we don't assume that you've worked in managerial accounting for 20 plus years. We also don't assume that you're fluent in the language of information technology or more complicated financial topics. But what we do assume is that you're like us, and you need somebody to explain this material to you from the student's perspective. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So to the student who scored between a 60 and a 74%, and specifically those of you who scored between a 70 and a 74%, first of all, I'm so sorry. I've been there myself. But like me, you will get through this, and you are going to get this thing done. But getting this thing done doesn't necessarily require that you overhaul your entire approach, or relearn every single tiny little detail that the AICPA outlines in the blueprint. No, this is about fine-tuning your approach, thinking about cost behaviors a little bit differently, because the devil's in the details, and you never know what they're going to ask. Sure, the majority of the questions are going to be mathematical, but a lot of them are also conceptual. At the end of the day, the CPA exam also wants to ensure that you're ready to enter into the world of managerial accounting and do the job that a reasonable professional would. With that being said, when you're relearning this material, it's paramount that you ask yourself, why would I be doing this? In order to truly understand why you would need to do this in the real world, you need to see what's happening first. That way, when you're at the Prometric Center, you're going to be scanning a question, right? You're scanning, boom. You can immediately identify, okay, this is talking about variance analysis. Now all of a sudden I could revert back to my mental map, my systematic approach. And now I can ask myself specifically, what type of variance is this question talking about? It is now that I can remember, okay, what do I know about sales volume variance? And why is this different from any other variance calculation? Look, the BEC exam is gross. It's comprehensive, and it's both mathematical and conceptual. But one thing that it's not is rocket science. So if you're just looking for that 5% difference, right? You're looking to fine-tune your approach and understand the intuition behind a few topics that, for whatever reason, you just can't understand, then check out Universal CPA Review. We can give you that aha moment, that, oh, now I see it moment. We also provide video explanations on every single multiple choice question and every single task-based simulation. The reality is everybody's a visual learner. We can't just memorize it, we must also see it. So sign up for a 14-day trial today and see what we're really about. And if you do decide that you like us enough, feel free to apply discount code UNIVERSAL2021 at the checkout for 25% off any Universal product. And always remember, if it was easy, everybody would do it. And there's nobody working harder than you.